Hi there, hope you're having a lovely day so far. Well, when trying to entertain toddlers and preschoolers, there is no doubt that they can be a tough crowd. But during home isolation, there are lots of challenges and they are only magnified as we're unable to take them outdoors to burn off all of their energy in their usual activities and daily activities like daycare, kinder, preschool, play centres, the park, the playground, the library, play dates. Well, the list can just go on and on and on. So the question is really, how can we keep our little ones entertained and engaged in and around the home? Well, lucky for us today, we're joined by Bree from Be Minor Music, who's here to help. Now, Bree is going to share some fresh ideas and strategies that is going to help you sort of break up the monotony of life home in isolation. Now, Bree is the owner and operator of Melbourne's only child-led music program called Be Minor Music. Now, Bree has over 15 years experience as an early childhood educator and is a mother of 3 gorgeous kids. Now, Bree has also published her own nonsense song book called, get ready for it, The Dibble Dabble Ding Dang Bonkers Song. I hope I said it right. And she also produces her own music for children, which is played on the likes of Little Rockers Radio, who Kittypedia is also partnered with, and Kinderlink Radio, and is available on iTunes and all good online music stores. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bree. How are you?
My pleasure. So good to be here. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Really good, really good. And as we were just saying before, I just would love to be able to hug you, but at the moment it's just a virtual hug through the likes of virtual high five. So, now, parents, all around Australia are just really starting to appreciate the work of our early years educators and, all of the incredible work that they do. Now, you worked in the early years sector for many years. I'd love to get your thoughts on this new sense of appreciation that parents do have for our early years educators.
I think some people knew how much early childhood educators did in their jobs, but keeping their children at home now and trying to come up with new activities and ideas and everything to make sure that their children are developing, parents found out how hard the job really is. So I'm hoping that they'll get a little bit more credit, especially from the government, now that, their role has been so important, especially during isolation.
Yeah. It's the same with all of our nurses and frontline staff as well. I think everybody has a completely new sense of appreciation for the incredible work that they do. And I guess where primary school and secondary school age children are currently being homeschooled at the moment, it's not much different with parents of preschoolers, but if anything, parents with school-age children may be receiving a little more support as classes are quite structured and supported by technology from that perspective, and also through the teachers' support. Now, you're a busy mum of 3 gorgeous kids who that I absolutely adore, and 2 of them are in primary school. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this at the moment, the fact that the preschool children are possibly not receiving as much support from the childcare centres, kindergarten, preschool, as much as primary aged and secondary aged children. What are your thoughts?
I think from some of the centres that I've spoken to and kindergartens that I've spoken to, they're slowly, as the weeks roll on, are starting to realise that a lot of their families aren't able to make the program for various reasons, and some are sending out experiences. I know, for example, if I'm doing a music session, some of the families will be given a link to that session at home so that they can still join in.
Yeah.
But it's not a daily thing. So with school, most schools are doing their daily activities. Some schools are doing online classes where they're face-to-face with the teachers. Whereas at kindy, you really don't have the ability to do that because you've still got children in your care who are more needy than, the children that go to primary school. So it's a really hard one for them.
Yeah. It's been said that parents are not meant to replace the teachers at this time, rather support their children and their teachers whilst the distant learning is being facilitated, and homeschooling is in place. So in saying this, there are many early childhood teaching philosophies and techniques, one in particular which is very well known called the Reggio Emilia philosophy and technique, that this particular one prioritizes play-based hands-on learning over a prescribed curriculum per se, with the likes of Montessori and different sort of teaching techniques. So in saying that, for any parent that is concerned about their child's early education, this particular technique is something that all parents can easily facilitate and manage from home, given that it's play-based. So provided your experience in the sector for so many years, can you explain a little bit more about this, just to put some parents at ease?
Sure. So research shows that under the age of 7, play-based is the most important way to learn. So basically just getting activities for your children and allowing them to learn through play. And that can be anything. So, you know, you can have a bunch of pencils, for example, and ask a child to sort them into different piles, you know, by their colour. And then you can count how many pencils are in each pile. Now, to somebody you might think, well, you know, that's fairly simple, but in that you're learning about your colours, you're learning language, you're learning numeracy, fine motor skills from picking up the pencils. So you can do play-based experiences and develop in most areas just within one activity.
Yes, and play-based can sort of go across, as you just mentioned, from numeracy, from maths, from colours, but also through art, activities and music, which of course, you know, you're an expert in as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, just little things like, say, for example, I've got the bells behind me. You could do an experience where, you know, there's 8 bells in an octave, and you can count them up and down and you know, sing some songs and things like that. And through that, you're actually using your left and your right side of your brain at the same time. So, but to a child, they're just dinging bells and singing songs. So they're not even aware that they're learning, which is the most beautiful thing.
Yes. Well, I mean, in saying this, how can parents of preschool age children help encourage play-based activities at home to help with their children to explore, to experiment, to discover and solve problems in imaginative and playful ways?
Yeah. So one of my most favourite experiences to do is to fill a container with water and then pop some toys inside, and then you pop it in the freezer, and then once it's frozen, you give the child the container and you ask them to take the toys out. And this experience can take sometimes hours. I know with my children, sometimes they'll start on it and then they'll pop it back in the freezer and then they'll bring it out another time, and this can continue for days. And it's a great science experiment because, you know, you've got to think, okay, what can I do to make this process go quicker? So they might put their warm hands on the ice to make it melt. They might take it into the yard and get the sun to shine on it to melt. You know, some children who are more physical might bash it with some forks and stuff like that to try and chip away at the ice. And then there's that reward at the end where, you know, oh, I finally got the toys. And then most likely they'll then play with the toys, which will enable role playing. So, you know, this can be like an activity that goes on for hours. Which I absolutely love. Good old Play-Doh. You know, Play-Doh goes back to the end of time in childcare. It's one of the staple experiences in rooms from babies through to preschool. Most people have the ingredients around your house. I'll pop up a link for the rest of my favourite recipe. And with Play-Doh also, you can either have it by itself, or you can add, like if your child's interest is dinosaurs, you can make a little village and pop the dinosaurs in with the Play-Doh, and the Play-Doh can be the grass or the Play-Doh can be the trees. You know, you can pop farm animals in. You know, I personally like to make Play-Doh just white, so not adding any colour at all. And that way the children are more likely to use their imagination and it becomes, you know, many different things.
Yeah.
Other things, make your own paint. Same thing with just simple corn flour and water and dye. You can make your own paint, and you can make, you know, your own puff paint as well. So things like that are great experiences. And I don't know whether you've heard about the Rainbow Trail. Have you heard about the Rainbow Trail?
No.
Okay, so there's a Facebook page called the Rainbow Trail that was started during isolation, and it's basically encouraging people to make rainbows, to make other people happy. So it started with some drawing on the sidewalk with chalk, which my children did, and I think we spent about 5 hours just sitting down on the street drawing. I don't think you're actually allowed on the street now, but if you have a driveway, you can do that, or if you've got, you know, bricks or whatever on your house, you can draw, you know, like coloured blocks or rainbows, or you might like to put a rainbow in your window. You can either paint it or use post-it notes, or anyway, be creative with whatever you've got in your house. But that's a good day experience,
Yeah.
and then it makes passers-by happy.
Yeah, and I've actually seen a lot of those posts on Facebook as well, which has been beautiful to see, actually, with the colours and everything else on the footpath. So yeah, and look, we've got lots of articles and links that we'll sort of have that we've published recently as well. Lots of sort of play ideas and that sort of stuff as well, because we are, of course, going into the colder months, and either way, aside from COVID-19, we're still going to be indoors. So, you know, either way, we'll have some additional sort of support links and that sort of stuff as well. There's also been said that, you know, that preschool students often stay more engaged and alert when you use a variety of different materials and switch activities, say every 15 minutes or less, depending on the age of the child. Now, as a question, I'd love to know, do you personally think that parents should combine different activities throughout the day for best results to keep the children engaged and entertained? And or on the flip side, is it beneficial to enable children to become bored, and this would enable them to use their own imagination for the sake of developing their own sense of creativity and lateral thinking?
Yeah, now I think both things are really important. So for me personally, I would prefer to allow my children to get bored, and then they can, through boredom is where you create the most beautiful experiences. So I think it's really important for children at all stages of their lives to go through boredom, because that's where they, you know, they're using their brain. Okay, what am I going to do to get myself out of this boredom and everything like that? I have a saying that my children hate, but I say only boring people get bored. So basically, if you're bored, it means you're not using your brain. Like, you've got to think, okay, how can I get out of this situation? But there are also some children that really respond well to having constant activity. So I think it's a very personal thing, and I think parents know their children better than anyone else, and they know what works. So if your children thrives off activities and they need to be stimulated constantly through active learning, then the activities is a good way to go. Or if your child thrives off being left alone and, you know, working out their own activities through themselves, then I think that's a really important thing to let your child do.
In an interview the other day, I was speaking with Dr. Tessa Grigg, the Research and Development Manager at Jimbaru Kindiroo, and on that particular topic, she was saying it's even like with some of the home kitchen, you know, little toy things that the kids have, where they sort of have their little kitchen and everything else. They're great. But what's even better is actually creating one and having a child make that out of a cardboard box, and actually using their imagination to be able to create the likes of that, as opposed to it being given to them, which they're still great, don't get me wrong, and they're fantastic for play-based activities. But it's also great to be able to say, okay, great, well, we don't have one of those. Let's go to a supermarket or Aldi or wherever else that have got these big boxes, and let's create one of those. So it is, I guess, partly for us adults to think bigger and from a lateral perspective, and because I really believe that children's imagination is incredibly expansive, and we as adults have probably become more rigid in our thinking as opposed to what a child's imagination and thought process has the capacity and the ability to do. So sometimes we only need to provide some of the most basic of materials for them to have an open-ended sort of play experience. So just to clarify, so you're saying that it's probably just as important to have a little bit of column A, being that we do sort of change up the activities throughout the day to keep them stimulated, engaged and entertained, but equally it is good to mix in a little bit of opportunity for boredom to help them develop their sense of creativity and lateral thinking. So you said bit of A.
It's so important for families to not get caught up in the, you know, I must do this for my child. And I think expectations are so high on people. And I know there's a lot of preschool parents of preschool children who are scared because they're just like, okay, this is a really important year for my child because they're just about to go into primary school, and that's where they need to learn their pre-literacy skills and everything like that. You can learn pre-literacy skills through play. So they don't necessarily have to be sitting down and tracing letters and going through their numbers and their alphabet and everything like that. As long as you're reading and you're singing and you're talking, point out things around the house, and you might have a poster with words on it or whatever. Start to talk about the letters that are in that. And a great one is if they're watching TV, put subtitles on. So they won't be reading the subtitles, but the words will be going there. And over time, they might start to kind of go, oh, when that person says and, A-N-D, those letters keep on coming up. And over time, they might associate, certain words with those letters and things like that. So,
yeah. So
yeah, you can be smart about it.
Yeah. And so, look, what are some other great experiences to do around the home for pre-primary age children during isolation? You've mentioned some. Do you have any other ideas at all?
Yeah, so one of my favourite ones, other than the ice is my all-time favourite, is sink and float. So basically you just go around your house, grab a container of water and grab a whole heap of items, and you just guess which ones are going to sink and which ones are going to float, and then you pop them all in the water. And you can make it, if you've got siblings, you can make it a competition. Even if like I've got my youngest is 3 and my oldest is 10, and they still like to compete with each other, and surprisingly sometimes a 3-year-old will get it right over the 10-year-old. So they have lots of fun doing that one. The other one is magnets. If you've got something that's magnetic, walk around the house and see which parts of the house are magnetic, and you'll be really surprised at things that you would never have thought have magnets in them actually do.
Oh, I love that. That's a great one.
Yeah. And then you've got the old fun forts. Like, you can't go wrong with a day of forts. Transform your lounge room into blankets, and you can use pegs and elastic bands to tie around chairs and everything like that, and get the children in there, give them a picnic lunch in there. Like, you won't see them for the whole day. They'll spend the whole day either making the fort or hiding in the fort, and they can even sleep out in the lounge room for the night. Like, make it a whole day night kind of experience. And
rainy sort of cold wintry days are perfect for fort building, hey?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then, the other great thing that you mentioned, with the weather getting colder, is obstacle courses inside, because children, they crave physical activities. And if you're okay with using your furniture, you can do great obstacle courses. Like, you can use cushions to jump over, they can do forward rolls down the hallway. You can run in and out of chairs, use tables as tunnels. If you're a little bit more lax with allowing your children to do things around the home, they can jump up onto the kitchen bench and onto the table and jump down, and do a nice motorbike landing to try, get their gross motor skills. It's really important at this stage for children. I know with my children, if they've been sitting for too long, I'll be like, all right, quick, 20 jumping jacks each, and they'll just quickly get up and do 20 jumping jacks. And by the time they've finished those, then they're just like, oh, I'm up and doing stuff. And then they'll go off and do something physical, because they're now up and there's a little bit of adrenaline pumping through their body.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, what about online experiences? Would you be recommending this sort of stuff during this time? And in your view, how can parents take advantage of technology sort of during home isolation?
Yeah, there are so many things online right now. I think that the world's embraced being online, and the beauty of being online now is that you can access things from overseas that you were never able to access, or interstate, for example. So there might be a program that's been running in Queensland that you've always wanted to do, but you live in Melbourne, and now you can access those programs. But in particular, like, my all-time favourite is Pevin and Sarah. So I'm not sure if you've heard of them before, but they're teachers. They're 2 teachers who are also children's performers, and they've got a website called the Cub Club. And in the Cub Club, they have like perfect for preschool and early primary years. They do the alphabet jam. They do things about phonics, about counting. And so it's all learning literacy and numeracy skills through songs. And they also do amazing songs about manners, about self-worth.
Oh, I love that.
About, feelings and things like that. So they just get everything right. Like, yeah. I cannot recommend them enough.
All right. Well, let's see if we can get a link to the Cub Club as well.
Yes, I will definitely pop them in. And they're also on YouTube as well. And within the Cub Club, they have worksheets and everything like that go along with their
wow, cool.
Stuff like that. So you could pretty much do a whole day's lesson plan just on Pepin and Sarah alone. But other things are, there's a children's couch time that's going on. They've just released the first one, which has 11 Australian children's performers.
Yeah.
And they've all put their own performances from within their house into
I love that.
concert. A new one will be coming out, I think, next week. So they're doing couch time too, and that includes people like the Micmacs, Vegetable Plot, Livy Kids Music. I'm in there. Emily, it's hosted by Emily who's just the most adorable children's performance. What? And there's so many more that I can't think of right now. But who I've got written down, because there's so many cool people. The Tiptoe Giants. Tiptoe Giants have got a great song about coughing and sneezing into your elbow. Mm-hmm. Livy Kids Music also has like a really cool hand washing song. The Micmacs have done a hand washing song. I think the Tiny Stevies might have done one as well. So there's lots of children's performers that have brought out all of these songs that are relevant to the now, like what we're going through. And I think it's really important for children to watch that. And Play School has also done an amazing episode about coronavirus. Which even one of my children referenced this morning about, washing your hands and having the germs on your hands and everything. And we were just like, oh, where did you learn that? And he said, through Play School. So, there's so many. And Debbie Do, if you haven't heard of Debbie Do, she's got a YouTube channel. She does lots of movement shows. Yeah. So basically it's encouraging the family to get up and dance. She uses a lot of the old classics and some of her new stuff. And so it's like that perfect mix and just great to get the kids up and moving. Yeah.
Cool. So I was reading that short 5 to 15-minute video lessons, games, or even online quizzes covering maybe, for younger children, 1 or 2 key concepts can be really quite useful. So short, snappy videos, as you were just suggesting, that would grab their attention through music and lessons, picking their interest, like you were saying, if it is teaching them how to cough into their elbow or what have you, and, these types of short, snappy videos can really help get them ready to apply their knowledge. So that's really great. And thank you for sharing those links. And we'll have those links in the introduction paragraph as well. But as you just mentioned just earlier on, that movement is so beneficial, which we know as well in so many ways. And unsurprisingly, movement is great for learning. And I've read, and there's a lot of research that supports this, that sort of shows that students learn better when they allowed and even encouraged to move around the classroom. And I know in a lot of your programs that you do for Be Mine, I mean, that's, I guess, the basis of what you're doing as well, I'm guessing. So, like, what are your thoughts on encouraging physical activity during the day, basically as a great way to mix up things and keep, your children home and motivated?
Yeah, I think movement is so important for learning, and that's why we have when the children are at school, they have recess and they have lunch, so they can get out and get all of that energy out of their body. There's some great products that are created for children who need to move. So while they're sitting at the table, there's wobble stools or elastic bands that you pop around the legs of chairs so children can constantly move their legs, or fidget toys. Fidget spinners were quite popular a while back, but they're not only popular, but they're great for children who need to actually fidget if they've been sitting for too long. If not, the children need to get up. They need to be upside down. They need to spin. So it's really important, I know sometimes people will get frustrated that their children are, will watch television upside down on the couch, or, they'll constantly be doing handstands and stuff. Actually, if a child's doing that, their body's craving that movement, and they need to actually do that in order for them to take in the schoolwork or take in the experience that you want them to learn. So, I think, getting children up and moving is really important. And as you said, for younger children, 15 minutes definitely, half an hour at the most. I know in childcare there used to be a saying that you double the child's age, and that's how long they should have an attention span for. So if a child's 1, they actually should only have a 2-minute attention span. Now, I know from my personal experience that if a child's engaged, that they'll engage for 40 minutes or longer. But ideally, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour tops is what you'd want a child to be actually sitting down and concentrating. And if you can see, if they're struggling, don't push them. They're obviously, and that, like, sometimes you might see a child in an experience and they're looking away or they're running around. That's fine, because they're actually taking what they can in through. Sometimes children need to run away in order to be able to take in the information that you're trying to tell them.
Okay, and what's the best way, I guess, for the family as a whole as well to use the opportunity of movement and staying physically, mentally healthy during isolation?
I think one of the most beautiful things right now is to get out and go for a walk, like, while weather permitting, unless it's unsafe, even if it's raining and it's cold, rug up warm, get out. There's so many beautiful things going on in the world right now. The air's clearer, it's cleaner, because there's less people on the road and less factories operating and stuff like that. And if you've been stuck inside, just going outside, for an hour every day, you're getting your vitamin D. Your gross motor skills through walking, and just, it's mentally uplifting.
Yes.
You see beautiful things when you're outside. So that's probably the most important thing. Ride your bikes, your scooters, yoga and Pilates are a really good one. There's a lot of online children's yoga programs. They use animals to do the poses, the yoga poses and stuff like that. Just any form of movement that you can. Or the best, most fun thing, put on the radio and have a dance. Make a playlist on YouTube and start the day with a YouTube playlist, and that'll get everybody's endorphins all pumping, and it'll just start the day really nice.
We recently published an article, 170 things to do to keep the kids busy in isolation, and there's a few of them on that list that break it down to sort of say, well, make a playlist of songs in the 70s and explain what the 70s were to the kids. Do the same things for the 80s, for the 90s, for the what do we call the 2000s? I don't know, the noughts. But it's a really nice way to be able to teach, a few different things, and, sort of say, well, at this time in my life I was doing this, or what have you, So there's different ways to be able to encourage music into the kids' lives at the moment as well. And then on that, with Be Minded Music, you've actually moved from actually doing physical classes within the services in and around sort of the northern suburbs of Melbourne, and you've now, I'm guessing, and tell us a little bit more, you've now had to sort of pivot the business a little bit and operate it, obviously, just from an online perspective. Tell us, I guess, what you're doing and how parents can sort of help stay involved and also access your services as well.
Yeah. So basically, I used to run 5 days a week face-to-face sessions. Now I'm 5 days a week online. Mm-hmm. So most of my sessions back then were through childcare centres, and I had a few public. Now it's turned around. So most of my sessions now are public and just a few childcare centres. Every Wednesday I do a free Facebook Live at 11 o'clock. And awesome. Then on the other days, if you check out on my website, bemindedmusic.com, and I've got all of the classes listed each week. Some of them are changing as the weeks go on, depending on what things come up. But yeah, they're mainly at either 10 or 11 in the morning and 2:30 in the afternoon, with the option of possibly doing an after school one, because I'm finding that a lot of grade preps and grade ones that used to attend my sessions are now wanting to come back. So stay tuned if anyone's interested. I'm trying to work out a time that suits parents at the moment, whether they want an after school or while they're cooking dinner to keep their children entertained.
So just to clarify, so the ages that your classes are for what ages?
Anywhere from 4 months through to generally about 7 or 8 years old. But there's no age limit. So if a 99-year-old person, is enjoying themselves, they're welcome. And, if a child, is interested, it's basically, and there's people with intellectual disabilities too that are adults that, sometimes enjoy attending B minor music sessions. So I'm not limited to age. It's whoever enjoys music and what I do.
And is this something that families all around Australia can access the Facebook page to be able to access those classes? Are they closed groups? And what part of Melbourne are you operating in?
Okay, so anyone in Australia or overseas can access them. So I do all my sessions through Zoom, except for the Wednesday one, which is through Facebook. So if you go to bminormusic.com, all of the information's in there telling you. So once you pay for a session, then I give you the links and everything like that, and they're closed groups except for the Facebook ones.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Bree. Parents have any other questions for you and or want to reach you after this chat, whereabouts can they find you?
They can find me at bminormusic.com or come over to my Facebook page or Instagram page, and feel free to ask me any questions. I've got lots more ideas to come, and so many more links that I'd love to share with you. There's so many amazing children's artists and children's activities going on around Australia right now.
Yes.
And I'd love to share as many as I can with you, because there's some great businesses out there.
We'll include as many of those links as we can in the introduction paragraph, that's for sure. Well, look, thank you so much for your time today, and just can't wait to chat with you again. Give my love to the kids. Big love.
My pleasure. So good to see you. Thanks, everyone. See
Bye.
you later. Bye.